Hello, everyone, and welcome to Food for Thought. My name is Roman Polnar. I'm your host for this series of conversations with entrepreneurs, professionals, thought leaders, and philanthropists in the Jewish community. Today, we have a conversation with Manny Kagan about the mortgage market. Manny is the president of Pacific Bay Financial Corporation, Pacific Bay Financial Corporation, which is the oldest mortgage brokerage in the Bay Area, and he has been operating it since 1985. So we will talk about where and how to find the best mortgages, what to do as rates continue rising, and we'll talk about solutions for unconventional situations. But first, before we jump into this conversation with Manny, I want to have a quick word about our sponsor. This podcast is brought to you by Hebrew Free Loan of San Francisco. Hebrew Free Loan is a nonprofit that provides interest-free loans to help Jewish individuals in Northern California overcome financial challenges and pursue their life dreams. Hebrew Free Loan has been supporting our community with interest-free loans for over 125 years, and this series of conversations is another way to offer support and resources. Each person we're speaking with has real-world experience, and they volunteer to share their insights that may help you navigate whatever challenges you may be facing in your own life or business. And if you're listening from outside of Northern California and are wondering if there's a Jewish free loan that serves your area, please check out iajfl.org for a network of more than 50 Jewish free loan agencies throughout the world with the common goal of providing interest-free loans to those in need. All right, well, this is a good segue to welcome our guest, Manny Kagan, because unlike Hebrew Free Loan and Hebrew Free Loan loans, today's mortgage rates are far from free. In fact, they've been reaching new heights over the probably 20-year period, making home buying and refinancing a lot more challenging. And luckily for us, Manny brings many years of mortgage experience. He's personally and professionally has been through several of these cycles, and I'm looking forward to his perspective. So let's dig into this. Manny, welcome to Food for Thought.
Thank you. Pleasure is mine.
How are you?
I'm always good.
That is, in fact, your answer. You are always good, and I'm glad to see you in good spirits and with a smile on your face.
Thank you.
So listen, Manny, the focal topic of today is obviously mortgages. But before we get into that, I want to kind of pivot a little bit and talk about the personal introduction that you and I were talking about. You referred to yourself as the Renaissance man. What did you mean by that?
It's not what I mean. It's what some people called me. I just adopted this title, I would say, or whatever it means. I basically, beside of mortgages, I do other things. Interests, people call it hobby. I don't separate my life. It's just how much time I devote to this. I'm writing books. I'm a photographer. I'm a photo artist. I publish books, and I share my wisdom. I do many other things. I have taught Hebrew, Bible, Torah. I did so many things that, some say you are a Renaissance man. I think it's a good idea to call myself Renaissance.
All right, good. Well, that's a good distinction. You're not a self-proclaimed Renaissance man. You are a Renaissance man in perspective of people that know you.
Yes. Thank you.
Well, give us a little bit of a kind of a flyover your life. I mean, I know that you came to the U.S., you started a mortgage brokerage business, and we'll get to that. But take us back. Tell us about your story.
Well, usually people ask me a question, where are you from? And I say, well, I just came from this room, from outside. And then they switched, okay, so where's your accent is from?
Mm-hmm.
And then I say, okay, I speak fluently 3 languages. But I was born in Riga, Latvia, which was 75 years ago. And then I got married at 20. I had my first child at 21. And when we were 25, I say we, myself, my wife, all family moved to Israel. And so we lived in Israel for 9 years, which I had a successful career there. Mm-hmm. And then there was something else. I call it the hero's journey, according to some books. And on this hero journey, what God told Abraham, Lech Lecha, go there.
Mm.
So I came here. And the only reason for me to come here is just to meet Roman, right?
Well, I'm sure there were many highlights along the way, and I was probably on the far, far end of that. So tell us more. So you heard this voice, you came, Lech Lecha, here you are.
Yeah, so we came here and with a purpose to get education, to get a my master degree, business. And my wife studied fashion design. And then I started working as vice president of Women High Fashion Company. And then with ideas, and one day we'll have our own fashion business, and my wife will be fashion designer, and I'll run it. But I learned lesson very quickly, so it's one of those themes. So how to make $1 million in fashion business by investing at least two. So I was fast learner. And when next call came and actually appeared through I got involved with Amway. And one of the persons in Amway said, well, come, let's have lunch. And we have lunch. And he told me, I'm in the mortgage business. And I asked him, what is that? Well, we continue conversation. And he asked me how much money would like to make. So I was vice president. I had a company car. I had benefits, but I doubled what I was earning. And he said, you can make it. I asked him, where do I sign? That's how I became mortgage broker.
So when was this?
1983.
So in 1983, and I'm not an expert on mortgages, but I think that was more or less the peak of mortgage rates, right?
14, 15%.
14 or 15%.
Yes.
And that's when you started.
Yes, and we were dreaming when rates will come to 10, we'll have so much business. So it's everything is perspective.
Yes, it is indeed. I really want to dig into that. So at what point did you become an author and a photographer?
Well, I was photographing since I was a teenager, but it was just family portraits, and they never were good. And then one day we had interior decorator came to our office, and she said, you need to put some art photography on your walls. And said, what do I find? She said, go online. And I looked there, and for $350 I can buy something. Say, come on, I can do it myself. So I started printing my own images. And then professional photographer came for a photo session in our office. And he looked and he says, who photographed that? I said, I did it. So you have to do more of it. Well, but it's evolving process. And then when we travel, I always photograph people. And my wife said, why are you photographing those strangers? I have no idea. They're just interesting. So this gradually became a book. As a matter of fact, my first photo book is called Soy Cubano. After we went to a trip to Cuba in 2013, I fallen in love with Cubans. And I decided to make a book for them. And this is why I called Soy Cubano, I Am Cuban. And and again, I was criticized. You don't know what you're doing, it's amateur. Well, I said, who cares? and then I wanted to make a book about my clients, to write their stories. But the publisher told me, no, you cannot do it. So instead I made a book. It's called The Mortgage Game, the 5 C's and how connected. So there were the stories without images. And I feel something was amiss. So I started doing other books. And gradually, first book was Expression of My Love to San Francisco. And I came up with number 42. You have to read the book to know what it is. But the point is, all my books became 42 encounters. The first one was 42 encounters in San Francisco. Then there was 42 encounters with dog lovers. The next one is 42 encounters with laughter, jokes. And the last one, 42 encounters with love. And this is something which I also started doing, something which I tried when I was a teenager. I started writing poetry. So I started writing poems. I started with haikus. Haikus is short poems. And I was lacking words. I needed more words. So I started writing longer poems, and they became part of the book. So my next book is going to be called 42 Encounters with Manifestation of Light. It will be next year. I publish one book a year. And this also is going to be a book of poems about light.
Well, as someone who has seen at least two, if not three of those books, the 42 Encounters, I think one of them was with dogs. They're beautiful pictures. And so,
Thank you.
Tell us where we can find those books for the listeners that might want to look them up.
Well, then my evolution continued. So I started printing more images, and people love what I do. And then in my thinking, I think it was one of the Jewish magazines draws this attention to the phrase, the healing images, THEHEL, healing and images.com. So I created a site where people can see images and buy them. This is first time when I start selling art, because until then I was just giving gifts. I still give them as a gift. But there you can make a purchase, and they're beautiful. You can also check THI Photography. It's the same site. Now, I have something else which is part of my being Renaissance man. I also have healing. I can deal with healing energy. I'm a Reiki master, which means that I empower those images with healing energy. The people who are getting them, and I make them very special, they're translucent, then they are feeling certain calmness. They can sleep, they can relax. I don't know how it works, but this is what Renaissance men do, right?
Well, and relaxing and sleeping well is something that all of us need, especially in times like these.
And, so if you go the healingimages.com, you'll find those images and my books.
Great.
All 42 Encounters books are there.
So are you going to give us a hint of what 42 or the significance that number has?
Well, just kidding. It's the High-Kitchen Guide to the Universe. If you know the book, Adam's book. Mm-hmm. This is where it came, actually, was somebody suggested the name. But it's also 42 journeys, what I later find out. Then when Jews were in desert for 40 years, they actually had 42 encounters, encampments. So 42 became much more, and there isn't other meanings for 42. It's an opportunity to check what 42 means.
Good. We'll put the links to the websites that you mentioned in the show notes so folks can find those books and learn more about it if they're so inclined. But let's talk a little bit about kind of the mortgage space that you're in. So you started in the space 1983. You started your own brokerage in 1985. And it sounds like you got into the business as a bit of a challenge as you left that corporate world behind. Tell us about those early days and how did you get through building a business and where are you now?
When I started the company, it was a mortgage bank. At that time, mortgage brokerage, as it is known now, didn't exist. I almost created it because I started reaching out to savings and loans. At that time, it was savings and loans, and building relationship with them with the idea that I can bring business to them because they could do things which mortgage bank couldn't do. So when I started, I had to find solution, and I started teaching real estate agents about mortgage programs. I continue doing it now, as a matter of fact, again, because of slowness of business. So I had to teach them to think out of the box, not just to sell homes, but to sell benefit to the clients of owning this home. And mortgage is part of it. So no one needs a mortgage, basically. People want something. They want homes, they want dwelling, whatever you call it. But mortgage allows them to have it. So when interest rates are low, like a year ago, well, everyone was refinancing. I hear on radios that 89% drop on refinancing now. So how can we make living? In our company, you have 12 salaries. So how can we survive? Well, we never lay off people. It's about our principles. So we use our resources, we use our savings, but we continue going because things are cyclical. But at the same time, I'm using the opportunity because there are alternative programs. Today, a lot of people can benefit from having a mortgage. For example, we have a program which allows people to get money from equity of the property without qualifying for a loan and without mortgage payments. no qualification, no mortgage payments, which is similar to reverse mortgage. But reverse mortgage is limited to age of 62 or 55 for certain programs. So I start offering reverse mortgages. And a lot of people, I'm working today in a half an hour, I have a client coming for a reverse mortgage. It's a saver, lifesavers. People who are in their situation when they need money, reverse mortgage, or it's called HEIA program, can help them to live. But there are other situations where, let's say, divorces. So people going through divorce, they don't care what interest rate. The one needs money, another wants to keep a home. Again, my solutions come very handy. So as to help people to understand this, I wrote 2 books. So first one is called Retirement Solution for Smart People with some images. And it's I finished writing it. It's now I have to edit and it'll be published maybe in a month. And just as a sequel for this, I started writing divorce solution for smart people. Again, when clients come in and I have a client, he goes through divorce. He went to 2 different banks. They turn him down and I can get him a loan. This is my specialty. I can find solutions in a situation where people cannot get loans. And there's a lot of need for that.
So I like how you talk about your business in terms of solutions as opposed to a product. And it's easier, obviously, to connect with solutions because, like you said, nobody needs a mortgage. People are looking to own a home or whatever it is that they need a mortgage for. But talk a little bit more about sort of what are the challenges or how can you overcome the challenges in today's marketplace, right? Interest rates, I think, looking at the last 20 years are more or less at 20-year highs. But I think the biggest challenge is that how fast those mortgage rates went up. I think the increase has, in the last 9 months, we haven't seen in over 50 years. Do you have any insight for folks who are maybe sitting on the sidelines who wanted to buy but now feel like they're getting priced out because of these high mortgages?
You know what rates are doing? They're matching gas price. Yesterday I went to fill a tank. It was $7 something. Mm-hmm. It's insane. Apparently we have some refinery problem. But interest rates are long-term rates, and therefore they're not tied exactly to what Fed is doing, but what economy is doing. Mm-hmm. And there's artificial way to slow down the economy. I don't know if it's right or wrong because it creates a lot of hardships. I don't believe in economy which hurts people. All the businesses, Corona hurted people. Now it's next wave. And maybe we're going through a cycle, historical cycle, I even say. And we need to learn how to adjust ourselves and how to live in different circumstances. When it's low, it's easy. You run from one bank to another. When the challenges, they have to come to me. So all the challenges were specifically created for them to find me. There's no other reason, in my mind.
So talk about some of the solutions or the difference in how you reach those solutions.
Give some ideas. So what we're doing now. Mm-hmm. One is called DSCR, Debt Service Coverage Ratio, where you can qualify for a mortgage for rental properties just based on the rental income. And it can match principal, interest, tax, insurance, can be less. There are so many different ways. So if you own rental property and you want to buy one, you don't need to qualify based on your personal income. They don't care. They only care how much rent you can generate. Another way to create a loan is through bank statements. There are different variations. There's a 12 months, 24 months, 3 months. Some of them say, we don't need even months. So give me one bank statement from your business to show that there's a name of the company. And I need a letter from CPA stating that you own the business, and I'll give you a mortgage. It's insane, but this is what lenders do. They protect themselves with lower loan to value, which is also risky. Then you can get a loan without any, there are special programs. You just need to have 3 months reserves and you can get a loan on owner-occupied property. I'm doing one now for a client who bought his home with private money lender, which at 12%. So I'm going to get him a loan with 8.5%. What an improvement. But it's possible. Then we have situation like building in San Francisco called Millennium Tower.
Mm-hmm.
Millennium Tower is the leaning tower of San Francisco. And because of the issues which it has, most of banks cannot lend on this.
Mm-hmm.
But we found a lender. And this lender gives us opportunity to lend an interest rate, which I just closed the loan, was, are you sitting down?
Go.
8.875%.
Wow.
However, of course, monthly payments are higher than 4.875. However, the value of property will go next year after the finish. If it will cost client extra 48,000, a value will go up to 200,000. As long as the client can afford the payment, it's no brainer. Best investment you can do for your money. So
right. It's different when you look at this as an investment versus a place to live and pay off for the next 15, 20, or 30 years.
Yes. Or I'm using this HEY program I mentioned before. I'm pulling out equity from clients' condominium in San Francisco. He adds his own savings. Then he is going to buy a home for his family in Sacramento. He's going to put 300,000 down. We're going to get him DSCR loan against rental. And then he will sell his condominium here, and then we'll pay down the loan to 300,000. Then I'll be able to get him reverse mortgage. How about this for creativity?
Yeah. I'm not sure I followed all of that exactly, but it does sound creative. I mean, I understand what you're doing conceptually. And tell me, is that different than what banks do?
Banks cannot do it.
Why not?
Because they don't have those tools. Banks, if you talk on commercial banks, they lend your money. You put money in the bank, they pay you zero interest on your money, and they lend this money at higher rate and they make profits. However, banks are not in the mortgage business, the banking business. So they primarily lend to people who keep money in the bank. If you keep money, they can work with your money. They have some of the banks have very good interest rates on adjustable loans, but they're not structured to do those, what in our language is called no QM, no quality mortgage, because they're financed by different sources, hedge funds, insurance companies, therefore it's different money, different conditions.
So when you talked about starting out in the mortgage banking space, is that what you're talking about, or is there a third type of institution that gives loans?
Well, they are private money lenders. I'm doing now a loan for a client who bought commercial property in San Bernardino. And for the number of reasons, he cannot get conventional loan. He's not showing taxes for his reasons. But we could get him private money loan, $2 million against his property. So basically, there's always, I would say not always, but most of the times there are solutions. Not everyone can get it. I was working now a few days ago with a client who she wanted to buy a condominium in San Francisco, but her name is on mom's credit. So mom spends money, therefore her ratio is low. So now there's other things. So I cannot help her, but I gave her advice how to improve her credit score. And maybe in a year she'll come back.
So briefly talk about the differences between then a mortgage broker or brokerage and mortgage banking.
Okay. Mortgage banks are using money from lines of credit. You have to have commercial line of credit. There are special banks who issue those lines of credit. You make a loan and you sell it, you pay it back. You kind of deposited your loans into the pool, and then you're getting money back. And they are recycling this money, making small margins. You know, mortgage banks make very little income from each loan. But when you have many loans, you have more money. Therefore, what will happen now is already happening. Many banks will disappear, mortgage banks. People will reappear again later. But as the name, they will disappear because they will overextend themselves. They cannot sell those loans. And this already happened to a number of large mortgage banks. In my evolution, I also was mortgage bank by joining mortgage bank. And I didn't like it. It was too rigid. I had to account for every pencil I had to buy. So I prefer to be freewheeling like I am now.
So is mortgage brokerage is where you get the flexibility. Is that what you're saying? So if
Yeah.
I'm looking for a new loan, should I go to my local bank or should I come to a mortgage broker?
You come to me, and if I would decide, from my knowledge, that you are better off in Wells Fargo or Union Bank, I'll refer you to people whom I know. I know every bank. I know everyone who does business in this town, at least. So I know what they do. I don't offer mortgages. I offer solutions. If there is somebody else has better solution for their needs, of course I'll go to a bank. But if you come to me, I'll know that.
So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about a couple of those types of loans that are not talked about enough. And I think especially in this economy, in this market, and some of the folks who are getting priced out, maybe they're getting ready for retirement. You talked about reverse mortgages. I know this is an area that is greatly, I want to say misunderstood, because in my personal experience, when I talk to people about it, they have this emotional reaction like, I don't want that. That's bad. And I think a lot of that is rooted in the past loans that, or the past programs that weren't as good. Talk a little bit about that as a solution. Who is it for? Is it good? Is it bad? When should people think about it?
Okay, there is no good and bad. As you say, the solutions. People have specific needs. Let's say you go to a doctor and you go to generalists who have knowledge of many different things. Or he will refer you to different doctor who is specialist, or he will find solution. He needs to run x-ray to see what it is. For me, it's a credit report. And then I discuss things which are you cannot see on the surface. I understand what needs are and how, and limitations. A lot of people have limitations. What I do, I analyze them. For me, there's no good and bad. So some people, for them, it works better, reverse mortgage. I have a client now.
Well, what is a reverse mortgage? Talk about that a little bit, because I'm not sure.
It's a reverse mortgage which doesn't have mortgage payments. It's a mortgage. Word mortgage is misleading. California doesn't have mortgages. It's a financial instrument. California is called deed of trust. It actually outlines boundaries of the property. So when you get when you're applying for a loan, it can become known as a mortgage. So when you're getting straight longer mortgage, a loan, you're paying every month.
Mm-hmm.
However, reverse mortgage is also a mortgage where you don't have to make payments every month. So what you do not pay, it's accrues. In other words, if you're not making payments, I'll compare it with credit cards. You take money from credit card. You either pay in full or you pay partially. If you pay partially, it will accrue at 20%. So reverse mortgages have interest rate. So they determine, and you can, when we make reverse mortgage, we have a table, shows what will happen after 10 years, 20 years, and so on, after 1 year. So clients know exactly how much it will accrues, how much you owe. So then you either sell the home and then you pay what you owe plus accrued interest, or you die, sorry to tell to those people who will die, and then somebody will inherit this property. And then you have to pay it off or to refinance. So in my book, which I just finished writing, Retirement Solution, I post, I think, 10 cases related to reverse mortgages, and all of them are different. There's a completely different needs. At the same time, recently we were introduced to this program, which I call HEI, Home Equity Investment, which is not a loan, it's shared equity, which has similar situation of characteristics reverse mortgage. You don't make payments and you don't need to qualify. And this one helps people in different ages and different circumstances. I have a client who came to me, she could get 600,000 in reverse mortgage or 300,000 on HEI program. Her son have chosen 300,000 because he's going to inherit property. She needs money to have home support system. You see, there is a different needs which people have, and without this help, they will be in their situation.
So there you go, folks. You can either reach out to a mortgage broker, just like Manny for Creative Solutions, or you can read his book, which I assume is going to talk a lot about these different solutions. for different situations that people have. Manny, as we get close to wrapping up our conversations, what are you working on right now?
You know, as a loan?
No, you said you were writing a new book. So
Writing a book. Okay. So my next one, I stumbled, like many other things happened. I encountered. I met divorce attorney, or attorney who helps with divorces, and she had a client. As I mentioned, he had challenges, and I know how to help him. But I know I go deeper. With him, it's not just getting him paying off his wife, but what to do next. He needs money to fix the property. I know how to structure the whole. I'm changing his life in this sense, because this is how I think about him. It's not just product to sell a product, but how to help him to live on. I call it, we'll get you a mortgage you can live with.
Awesome. So speaking of books, share with our listeners, what is your favorite book?
I don't have favorites. You know, like I have a certain practice 3 times a week. After stretching, I read. And I simultaneously read maybe 4 books. All of them are meditative nature or some thinking. For example, one of the books I read is Jewish Chochmah. It's Jewish proverbs. They're in Yiddish and translated in Yiddish and English. So it's so wise, it's so deep, and it's remarkable. And then I also, one of the things which I do regularly, I read and look through books of photography. Because as a photo artist, I believe that I need to keep myself in a level with other photo artists.
That's great. So maybe you can mention some of those books in closing, though. I just want to mention and remind everybody that we've been talking to Manny Kagan, who is an author, a photographer, and he's the president of Pacific Bay Financial and an expert on creative mortgage solutions. Manny, where can people learn more about you?
Well, there's a number of places. As I mentioned, one of my photography, it started as a photography website. It's thehealingimages.com. There you also find my books. You can go to mannykagan@comcast.net. This is my email. You can always write to me. Or to mannykagan.com. I also, every Friday, I write essays. It's called Fridays with Manny. It's copied from Tuesdays with Maury, Mitch Albom's book, which I love. And there you also always will find 3 images. So every Friday and Wednesday, I post money solutions on the same site. So mannykagan.com, you'll find this. And then I start posting now on YouTube. So you will be able to find me there as well. Just go to Manny Kagan and I'm there in person.
Well, and for those of you who are listening to us and not watching a replay, the website is www.mannykagan, so mannykagan.com.
Thank you.
All right, Manny. Well, thank you so much for being with us and sharing some of your insights. And thanks to all of our listeners. Thanks, Manny.
Thank you. Thank you.